Right, so I'm back to do my predictions for UFC 183. As you know, I only do predictions videos now for actual numbered championship events. However, UFC 182, which happened right at the start of January, unfortunately slipped under my radar. It did so mainly because I was not very well at the time. The 3rd of January, and I want to run through that plus the rest of the events to award my fighter of the card. Now, for me, the fighter of the card for UFC 182 is not John Jones. The reason is because he didn't manage to finish, really. You know, a lot of people said that they thought that Daniel Cormier would win. I think they were a little bit overtaken by the smack talk, which I think Daniel Cormier himself might have been overtaken by that smack talk as well. I would never doubt John Jones in that sort of situation, but I had expected him to finish, and he didn't. Perhaps that's a little harsh. Which means it's open to somebody else, and I've decided that I'm going to give it to somebody on the preliminary card, in fact. I could have given it to Donald Cerrone, who managed to finish Miles Jury, and he would go on to finish somebody again in the next one, I think. Am I right? Yes. He would then go on to finish to beat Benson Henderson in the next event as well. So that's 2 wins for him by the middle of January. But there was only one person who I thought was actually extremely impressive, and maybe that's not just because he finished, but because of the way he finished. I'm going to give my fighter of the card to somebody called Paul Felder, who defeated Danny Castillo, in fact with a spinning back fist. Usually when we see that, it doesn't even work. So there we are. Moving on, the next card was Fight Night 59, and that was on the 18th of January. And, do you know, I looked at that and I am going to give fighter of the card to Conor McGregor, who was the main event. He defeated Dennis Siver and did so by knockout. However, this does not mean I'm part of the Conor McGregor bandwagon, which is going round, because I'm not. Firstly, I do think that Conor McGregor is another high-prize UK person, which the institution are hoping will go a long way and doing all they can to support, which includes matchmaking him against people who are not likely to do well against his style. Unfortunately, when he gets really high and starts challenging champions, he's not going to do so well. It's all going to come crashing down, I fear. But for that particular event, I'm going to give it to him. I do notice that Donald Cerrone, though, has now gone 2 up in January in these first 2 events. Right. The next event, which has only just happened, was UFC on Fox 14. It was a European UFC. And their main event was Anthony Johnson versus Alexander Gustafsson. Do you know, there were a couple that I could have given it to here, including the Gegard Mousasi Dan Henderson match. I hear that Dan Henderson is not going to retire despite being stopped there. I also have to mention the Andy Ogle fight. Deeply saddened that he didn't win that. There is talk about it being an early stoppage. Do you know, I think it was unfortunate. I think you can argue either way. I don't think it was definitely a robbing, I'm afraid. But it may well have sort of more been a flash knockout than anything else that was caught on. you know, I'm just sad. I had hoped that he would win that one. There we are. My fighter of the card for that will be Anthony Johnson, who actually managed to defeat Alexander Gustafsson, who's another guy that the institution probably hoped would get a bit further. Gustafsson certainly hoped he'd get a bit further. He burst into tears after the fight, which is always a little bit, you know, a little bit not awkward, but a little bit sad. He obviously wanted to win that one, and I don't know now how far his stock will have fallen because of that, because I know that he was, you know, basically contendership level. So that is, let me just check. Oh yes, that's, you know, I get myself confused because I have so many different windows open all at once that I forget where I'm actually looking. So now I'm going to move on to actual fight predictions for UFC 183. Their main fight is Anderson Silva's return from his horrific leg injury, and he's fighting Nick Diaz. Don't know how that's going to go down, particularly. You know, I wonder if we will see if Anderson Silva has not been able to recover. This is testing times for him. I certainly don't think he can go straight into the big time again. He's been out too long, and that injury was horrific. We need to see if he can do well. If he doesn't, then it's likely he will never recover from this. Nick Diaz, you know, in a way, he is stand-up, and so in a way he is going to test. If I was him, it would be the leg kicks, obviously, that I'd go for. But I think he stands a better chance of winning, as does most people, with Anderson Silva on the ground. If I had to lay a bet, obviously, I would go for Anderson Silva, although I'm not a particular fan of his. That's just basically what I think. The next one is Tyrone Woodley and Kelvin Gastelum. Do you know, Gastelum has a perfect record of 11, but Tyrone Woodley is extremely well-rounded, arguably better in most areas. Do you know, I like them both, but I could see this being Kelvin's first loss, so I'll go for Tyrone Woodley on that. Bet it's a decision, though. Joe Lauzon, I haven't heard or seen from him in I don't know how long. He's fighting Al Quinta, 10-3 versus 24-10 for Joe. You know, Joe has a hell of a lot of experience, and he's very experienced on the ground, which is, unfortunately, Al's area of weakness. So I'm going to go for Joe Lauzon. I think he'll probably get a submission victory there as well. Charles Lights and Tim Boach next. 24-4 versus 18-7. This is groundsman versus striker, with Tim Boach being on his feet. I don't know. I side more towards Tim Boach on that one. Thiago Alves, haven't seen or heard from him in a long time either. I know that he's sort of semi-retired at one point and now he's back. Let's see if he can get back into winning ways. 25-9 versus, sorry, 25-9 for Thiago, 29-9 for Jordan Mine, who he is fighting. Both of these people are stand-up fighters, so this is likely to be one of those on the feet. Do you know, I will give him the benefit of the doubt because he went a long way before he stopped last time, and I'll go for Thiago Alves there. Moving on to the preliminary fights, there is a women's bout on the card. Miesha Tate, 15-5 versus Sarah McMahon, 8-1. Well, on that note, and because her nickname apparently is Cupcake, which makes me laugh, I don't know why, I shall go for Miesha Tate there. The next one, Ed Herman and Derek Brunson. 23-10 versus 12-3, but don't let that put you off going for Derek Brunson. This could be underdog pick of the night, but I think that he's extremely good. Statistically speaking, probably not as good as Ed Herman, but I'm going to go for a Derek Brunson win there. Wouldn't like to say how. Ian McCall is fighting John Linker. 13-4 for Ian McCall, 24-7 for John. Do you know, this is probably going to be one that is a stand-up war, but ends by decision. I think I'm going to go on the seeding here more than anything, and go for Ian McCall there. Rafael Natal and Tom Watson, 18-6 versus 17-7. This is striker versus groundsman again, with Rafael Natal on the ground. I err more towards Rafael Natal, I think, on that one, though I can't really explain why. Okay, the real undercard then, we've got Diego Brandao and Jimmy Hetz. Diego Brandao has a very impressive record, but Jimmy Hetz is absolutely fantastic on the ground. 91% of his wins there. He's never knocked anyone out though. Diego Brandao is sort of more of a stand-up striker, I suppose. Excuse me. I'm afraid I've probably already given you the suspicion. I'm going to go for another submission victory there for Jimmy Hetz. The next one, Idemar Alcantara and Richardson Maria, who I don't think I know at all. 7-3 versus 20-7. I wonder if this is a little bit of a squash match. Don't know, but I will say possibly, and I'll go for Idemar Alcantara there. Last bout on the card, Thiago Santos is fighting Andy Enns. They almost have exactly the same record, 9-3, 8-2. It is supposed to be striker versus groundsman, Andy Enns being on the ground, but they both tend to also have a large degree of decisions. Don't really know. Going to err more towards Andy Enns, I think, but I could be wrong there.